How you doing, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Marenfeld. I'm Brandon Marenfeld. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 36 of Hockey on the Spot, and for today, we're going to pretty much take a look at some of the prospect tournaments that are going to be going on from September 5th to September 9th. That starts tomorrow. But before we really get into that, couple things that have happened in the NHL. There have been a couple of moves made today. The Nicholas Hjalmarsson signed a 5-year contract extension with the Chicago Blackhawks with a $4.1 million cap hit. And I'm glad they did this. They need him. He's definitely probably their best shutdown defenseman. And he's a big player who comes up big in big situations. So they absolutely need him, and I'm glad they got him signed. In the meanwhile, there have been a bunch of players that have been invited to training camps for the upcoming season. A couple of which I mentioned yesterday, but I will mention again today. Um, the most recent one being unrestricted free agent forward Kyle Wellwood, who played last year for the Winnipeg Jets. He will be attempting training camp for the San Jose Sharks this year. And for those who may have forgotten, Wellwood did spend one season as a member of the San Jose Sharks in what was kind of half a season for him, that he kind of started in the KHL. But when he came over to the Sharks, he actually played really well. So there's a lot of familiarity there. Um, and he'll be happy to be back with those guys, and he could definitely add some depth to that group if he does make it full time. But in the meanwhile, there have been also a bunch of others. A couple by the Montreal Canadiens. They've invited defenseman Matt Lashoff to their uh, training camp, as well as veteran forward and top unrestricted free agent Brendan Morrow, who I initially believed was going to attend the Carolina Hurricanes training camp and was widely considered pretty much 5 or 6 minutes after my video yesterday. He got invited to the Montreal Canadiens training camp, and it's a good move for them because they need a little bit more depth. Again, past his prime as a top six forward, but can now pose as one of the best third line players in the NHL for sure. A couple by the Phoenix Coyotes as well. Guillaume Latendresse, which I mentioned yesterday, and Gilbert Brule. Brule, a guy who is familiar with the Phoenix system. He's being given a chance to return to the team. The Calgary Flames, they invited Steve Beijing to their prospect camp, giving him the chance to return. Simon Gagne has been invited to the Philadelphia Flyers training camp. It's kind of unknown if they'll actually sign him, and some people believe they won't solely because of the fact that they don't have the cap room. But he is at least getting invited to their camp and being given a chance to return. And if they do sign him, it would probably be to like a really small deal, a 1-year deal. But the fact of the matter is that the Flyers do need a third line left winger, and Gagne, with his injuries, at least for right now, is no longer a top six forward. He's now more of a third line guy. The Carolina Hurricanes invited veteran forward Radek Dvorak to their training camp. Played for the Anaheim Ducks last year. I mentioned that yesterday. The Los Angeles Kings have invited a goaltender to their training camp, Matthew Guerin, who could be given the chance to battle Ben Scrivens for the backup job. And this would basically be Matthew Guerin's second stint as a member of the Los Angeles Kings. He was a member of their organization before. At one time, he was actually their starting goaltender back when they were not a good team and back when their goaltending situation wasn't settled. So he's pretty happy to be back there. Played for the Tampa Bay Lightning the last couple of years. The Florida Panthers, they invited veteran defenseman Brett Clark to their training camp. He spent time with the Minnesota Wild last year. Veteran blue liner who could still pose as a solid two-way defenseman. Those are really the big ones. The Nashville Predators also invited a bunch of guys to their camp that really you wouldn't know. Simon Moser, Vinny Sapineri, Barry Almeida and Theo Ruth. Don't know any of those four, but some more prospects, I presume. Um, and then also in other news today, the Buffalo Sabres have revealed their third uniforms today, which look very much like the Nashville Predators uniforms. Getting a lot of complaints about those new uniforms. Personally, I don't mind the new uniforms. I know a lot of people won't like them, and a lot of people will think that they're among the ugliest uniforms in the National Hockey League. But I'll be honest, I don't mind those uniforms, and I'm not typically a fan of third jerseys. If I were running a league, I'd probably ban third jerseys completely, but it is what it is. I don't mind the new uniforms. So with all that being said, let's go in and take a look at what we're really set out to talk about today. The prospect tournaments. My thoughts on the prospect tournaments. I love the prospect tournaments. I think it's a great way for teams to show off what they're really all about and give them an excellent ability to show off their top prospects. And it gives the teams an idea of who to bring in for training camp and who may even make the roster come regular season time. There are 4 actual tournaments and then 1 prospect game. Um, the big tournament, though, being the one in Traverse City, Michigan, the Traverse City Prospects Tournament. That is the biggest of all the prospect tournaments. It consists of 8 teams. It is hosted by the Detroit Red Wings, and therefore they are also in the tournament. But also participating this year in this tournament is the Minnesota Wild, Dallas Stars, St. Louis Blues, Buffalo Sabres, Carolina Hurricanes, Columbus Blue Jackets, and the New York Rangers, who participate in it pretty much every year. So we used to maybe see the Tampa Bay Lightning participate in this tournament. They used to participate in it. They will not be participating in it this year. They will be in another tournament, which we will talk about in a sec here. But the Traverse City Prospects Tournament is my personal favorite, not just because it's the biggest one, but it's just the most competitive, and it definitely gives you an idea for these 8 particular teams who's going to be the future of each franchise. So I like this tournament a lot. The other 3 tournaments, of course, there's one in Penticton, British Columbia. That one is hosted by the Vancouver Canucks. That's another pretty big one. That's like the second biggest one. Vancouver Canucks obviously participate in it, but also participating in it are the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, the Winnipeg Jets, and the San Jose Sharks. So all 4 Western Conference Canadian teams are participating in it. And then the San Jose Sharks, the only American team in this tournament. They are regulars to this tournament, so kind of not a surprise, but it's the only uneven tournament, only 5 teams, while the other 2 and plus have 4, and the Traverse City tournament have 8. So I kind of don't know how this tournament works, don't know too much about it, but I know it definitely is a good opportunity to get a look at these Canadian teams and the Sharks as well. So it's a good situation and a good tournament for sure. Then there's the London, Ontario Prospects Tournament, which is obviously hosted by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and obviously they're in the tournament, but also in the tournament are the Ottawa Senators, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So the Chicago Blackhawks are the only Western Conference team in this tournament, but another tournament that sounds really interesting whenever you hear the Chicago Blackhawks, you know it's going to be good. So, and they have a very deep prospect pool, and just their team right now is just probably the hottest in the league right now. So I bet you anything this tournament is going to be paid close attention to very much. And then the last tournament is the one in Coral Springs, Florida, which is obviously hosted by the Florida Panthers, and obviously they participate in it. But also participating in it are their arch rivals, the Tampa Bay Lightning, but also in this tournament are the Boston Bruins and the Nashville Predators. So we talked about the Tampa Bay Lightning. They usually participate in the Traverse City tournament. This year they're participating in the Coral Springs tournament. And another interesting kind of tournament considering its location. Florida, obviously not known as a hockey town, even though the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. And the Florida Panthers have made the Stanley Cup Finals. What's going to make this tournament good is that the Boston Bruins are in this tournament, and of course they lost in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, but they're another team that could be developing into somewhat of a dynasty, just like the Chicago Blackhawks. So you could bet your money on it that the Bruins are definitely going to be going into this tournament hard. So those are the 4 prospect tournaments. But in addition to those, there's also a futures game in Los Angeles, California, between the Los Angeles Kings and the Anaheim Ducks. It's just one game. That will be on September 7th. That will be the only prospect game on September 7th. The other tournaments take a break for that game. And this tournament is usually hosted at one of the professional arenas. Sometimes it's at Staples Center. Sometimes it's at Honda Center. I believe this time it's going to be at Honda Center. And yes, it is going to be at Honda Center, at least on September 7th. There's also a second game on September 9th. That will be held at the Toyota Sports Center. So the Kings will be considered the home team for that one. So 2 games. I thought it was 1, but it's actually 2. And it's just those 2 teams. Normally, the Anaheim Ducks are playing the San Jose Sharks for the Futures game. However, this time they will be playing the Los Angeles Kings. And that's not a bad thing. 2 arch rivals going at it. And these prospects for each respective team, future rivals. So they get to know who their rivals are going to be. And so it's a good way. It really is a good way to get the prospects to know who's going to be their rivals and who's going to be their allies. So with all these prospect tournaments, that's 24 teams that participate in stuff like this. The only 6 teams that don't participate in any kind of prospect tournament whatsoever are the New Jersey Devils, the New York Islanders, the Washington Capitals, the Phoenix Coyotes, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Montreal Canadiens. Why they don't participate in these, I don't know. Maybe a lot of it has to do that at least half of these teams do a colored jersey versus white jersey game. That could be the main reason. The Devils obviously host a red versus white game. Islanders a blue versus white. Avalanche a burgundy versus white. I believe the Phoenix Coyotes do it as well, a crimson versus white. So that could be a big reason as to why they don't. But that doesn't explain the Montreal Canadiens and the Washington Capitals. I'm not sure if they do those games as well. But it is what it is. You know, they don't want to have anything to do with these prospect tournaments. That's completely up to them. But honestly, I love these tournaments. I think it's a great way for players to develop. Unfortunately, the New York Rangers, who is the only team that I can personally watch with these prospect tournaments because I live in the New Jersey area, will not be broadcasting their games on television. However, they will be broadcasting their games via live stream. So I'm hoping for all you Ranger fans out there, you go check that out. I'm going to try my best to check it out. But, you know, I can't wait for the tournaments to start tomorrow. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be very interesting to hear about which prospects do the best. And really, the big prospects that are going to be the ones to watch, as to say, are actually the ones participating in the Traverse City Prospects Tournament. The big names in particular being Elias Lindholm of the Carolina Hurricanes and Valeri Nichushkin of the Dallas Stars. They're going to be big parts of that tournament. Another guy to look at is Jonathan Drouin of the Tampa Bay Lightning and Alexander Barkov of the Florida Panthers from the Coral Springs Prospect Tournament. Seth Jones of the Nashville Predators, he's in there. That's going to be really interesting to watch right there. We'll get to see Bo Horvat in the Penticton tournament. Darnell Nurse will be there. So we're going to have a lot of guys. Sean Monahan as well. So we'll have a lot of guys to watch in that tournament. Rasmus Ristolainen, he's in the Traverse City tournament, or at least I think he will be. So who knows? We'll get to see a lot of stuff going on with these tournaments, and I'm really excited for these tournaments to get going. And that's pretty much it. Training camp begins soon, and we're really looking forward to that. September 11th, the anniversary of 9/11. That is when training camp begins. Not really a great day to begin training camp, but it is what it is. Okay, guys, that'll do it for episode 36 of Hockey on the Spot. No episode of Hockey on the Spot tomorrow. Tomorrow is Rosh Hashanah, and I am Jewish, so I will not be doing a video tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to see some family tomorrow, so for those of you who are Jewish, enjoy your Jewish New Year. Happy Rosh Hashanah. And I'll see you all on Friday. This has been Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Join me again on Friday. Thank you, and have a great day.